You think absence makes them miss you, but it exposes the void you fill in their lives. Their fear, envy, and dependence will devour them silently. Presence is a weapon disguised as routine. Most men surrender it thoughtlessly, believing that showing up equals loyalty, friendship, or love. But the moment you withdraw, you transform from a background fixture into a threat. And that shift fractures the carefully constructed illusions others have built around you. This chapter forces the viewer to see absence not as loss, but as a lens, a mirror reflecting hidden dependencies, insecurities, and unspoken cravings. When you vanish, even briefly, the surface calm of those around you begins to ripple. Their smiles falter, their words stumble, and their eyes betray unease. These are the first whispers of suppressed emotion, fear, envy, desire, resentment, that they never intended for you to witness. Most men remain blind to this dynamic because they confuse presence with influence. Influence is silent. Influence is scarcity. Absence exposes it in stark relief. Consider the subtle indicators. The colleague who suddenly reaches out with forced friendliness. The partner whose patience cracks at the smallest provocation. The friend who tries to fill your space with noise and attention. Each action, each overcompensation, is a confession. Your absence has revealed a fracture they cannot repair without you. These moments are the key to understanding human nature's hidden economy. Attention is currency, and your presence is the wealth they crave but cannot control. Psychologically, absence acts as a surgical tool. By removing yourself, you allow the world to reveal its skeleton, stripped of politeness and pretense. Men in particular are wired to respond to loss with strategic calculation. Though most fail, they suppress the storm inside, attempting to maintain composure. But the suppression is a pressure cooker. Every glance they steal, every subtle maneuver to regain proximity, is evidence of their hidden volatility. The mirror of absence also confronts the viewer with their own power or lack thereof. If you are invisible to those who should fear your absence, it is not them who are weak, it is you. The first step in mastery is recognizing that presence is never a guarantee of influence. Withdrawal is the scalpel that separates the dependent from the indifferent, the loyal from the opportunistic. It is a test of relevance, and only those who understand the law of scarcity emerge as sovereign. Ultimately, this chapter reframes the battlefield. Life is not a stage for constant performance. It is a chessboard where absence and presence are moves of lethal consequence. Every withdrawal exposes, provokes, and challenges the structure others rely on. By the end of this chapter, the viewer must accept one immutable truth. If you are always present, you are always exploitable. If you disappear, you see the architecture of desire and fear in those who surround you. And with that knowledge, power becomes inevitable. Humans are masters of hiding what terrifies them most. When you withdraw, you don't just provoke absence, you ignite a furnace of suppressed emotions. Anger, envy, fear, and longing are not openly displayed. They are buried beneath layers of etiquette, rationalization, and self-deception. But buried does not mean gone. These suppressed reactions are predictable, measurable, and exploitable. This chapter forces the viewer to see suppression not as restraint, but as a ticking time bomb waiting for the pressure of absence to detonate. Suppression is a defense mechanism, but it is inherently weak. People suppress because they cannot control the chaos that full expression would unleash. They suppress because showing vulnerability or desire is dangerous. In a world where attention is a form of currency, and yet suppression is a confession, the very act of hiding emotion reveals what they value and what they fear losing. The instant you disappear, those hidden feelings surge in silent, often frantic attempts to reclaim equilibrium. This is the psychological lever you must learn to pull. The first emotion they bury is fear. They fear your judgment, your indifference, and above all, your absence. Fear does not scream, it simmers. It manifests in subtle ways, checking messages, monitoring social cues, or overcompensating in conversation. You will see it in hesitation, in the micro-expressions of irritation or longing. Those who act calm are often the most fearful. They have trained themselves to hide it. You must learn to read these shadows, for they mark the terrain of control. Next is envy, the quiet, corrosive acknowledgement that they cannot replace you. Envy does not announce itself. It whispers in distraction, in mimicry, in attempts to imitate your presence or accomplishments. When you withdraw, envy becomes visible in their actions. Sudden competitiveness, petty sabotage, or calculated attempts to insert themselves into your sphere. Every suppressed feeling is a signal, a weakness laid bare by your absence. Anger and resentment follow, often intertwined. People rarely express these immediately. They simmer, creating patterns of tension that undermine their clarity and decision-making. Withdrawal acts like a spark in a dry forest. What seems like calm exterior often masks a storm inside. Recognizing the signs of suppressed anger is crucial. It is both a threat and an opportunity. Those who fail to acknowledge it become predictable, impulsive, and easier to manipulate strategically. Finally, desire or longing, the most dangerous suppressed emotion, is revealed in subtle overcompensation. People act, speak, and maneuver to regain what they have lost or never fully appreciated. Their suppressed desire is a reflection of their dependency. This is the ultimate proof of control. They cannot function normally without your presence. Absence uncovers these hidden cravings, turning invisible leverage into observable strategy. By the end of this chapter, the viewer understands that human behavior is rarely spontaneous. Suppression is the armor of weakness. Absence is the pressure that cracks it. Mastery comes from observing these hidden currents, knowing which emotions are at play, and anticipating the way they will seek to reassert themselves. You do not need empathy, comfort, or motivation, only awareness. Because once you see the architecture of suppression, you see the battlefield as it truly is. A map of vulnerability waiting for someone ruthless enough to exploit it. Human behavior is predictable when stripped of politeness, morality, and illusion. When you withdraw, the responses of those around you follow archetypal patterns, as consistent as predator and prey. Understanding these archetypes is not an academic exercise, it is a survival imperative. This chapter exposes the recurring behavioral types, giving the viewer a map to anticipate reactions, manipulate outcomes, and assert control without hesitation. The first archetype is the dependent. These are the people who measure their worth by your presence. They panic when you vanish, scrambling to regain proximity through flattery, overcommunication, or subtle coercion. Their suppressed fear and desire are transparent. They cannot tolerate absence because it exposes their emptiness. Recognizing the dependent is simple. They overextend to maintain connection and reveal desperation in micro moments. For the strategist, they are both an asset and a liability. They provide leverage but demand control. Next is the predator, those who sense opportunity in your withdrawal. They exploit gaps to test boundaries, insert themselves, or destabilize your position. Unlike the dependent, the predator suppresses anxiety with calculation and patience. Their envy and ambition are quiet but lethal. Absence forces them to reveal their strategies, who they ally with, what games they play, what positions they covet. Understanding the predator is about observation, timing, and counteraction. Inaction against this archetype is fatal. Underestimation is lethal. The third archetype is the schemer, a hybrid of envy and strategic manipulation. They respond to absence with subtle machinations, spreading rumors, framing narratives, or quietly coercing others to fill the void you leave. Schemers rarely act openly. They operate in shadows, waiting for the optimal moment to exploit weakness. Withdrawal acts like a spotlight on their suppressed machinations. Sudden absence forces them to accelerate or reveal their strategy. Recognizing them requires attention to inconsistencies, micro-behaviors, and indirect signals. Then comes the stoic, seemingly unaffected, emotionally armored, observing without revealing. The stoic does not panic, does not overreach, and suppresses all outward response. Yet suppression itself is an admission. They are calculating, measuring, and plotting. Absence does not destabilize them immediately. but it forces internal processing, often accelerating strategic thought in ways that can either challenge or serve you. The Stoics' strength is discipline. Their weakness is predictability under pressure. Finally, some individuals do not fit neatly into a single archetype. They are chameleons, shifting between dependency, predation, and stoicism based on circumstance. Their reactions are adaptive but readable, once the rules of absence and suppression are understood. Chameleons reveal their true priorities only when provoked by the void you leave behind. Observing them teaches mastery of human behavior itself. All reactions, no matter how nuanced, trace back to need, fear, envy, or desire. By the end of this chapter, the viewer understands that human interaction is a theater of archetypes. Presence often masks these identities. Absence exposes them. The dependent shows desperation. The predator shows ambition. The schemer reveals cunning. The stoic plots silently. And the chameleon cycles through survival modes. Recognizing these archetypes allows you to predict behavior, manipulate engagement, and reclaim control from those who believe they control you. The battlefield of influence is no longer a guessing game. It is a calculated map, revealed with each absence, and ready for the ruthless strategist to dominate. Absence has always been a scalpel, slicing through facades to reveal human weakness. From courts of kings to the battlefields of empires, those who understood the power of withdrawal commanded influence without firing a shot. This chapter deepens the psychological threat by exposing historical examples and timeless truths, showing the viewer that human reactions to absence are not random. They are predictable, primal, and exploitable. Consider the courtier who vanishes from the king's presence. The absence of favor sends whispers rippling through the palace, exposing loyalties, envy, and hidden agendas. Advisors scramble, alliances fracture, and the fragile equilibrium of power collapses. Not because of violence, but because absence reveals suppressed emotion. History repeats this pattern endlessly. Those who leverage presence as a weapon maintain dominance, while those who fail to understand it are pawns, manipulated by the gaps they leave behind. Warlords and generals understood this instinctively. Commanders would withdraw troops strategically, leaving the enemy exposed, forcing fear and misjudgment to surface. The battlefield becomes a theater of suppressed responses, panic, envy among ranks, overreach, and reckless attempts to regain control. Absence acts as a magnifying glass, amplifying the flaws that would remain hidden under constant observation. Every misstep is a signal, every panic-stricken maneuver an opportunity for those who grasp the psychological mechanics at play. Even in personal domains, absence has historically revealed the architecture of human desire. Romantic partners, allies, and rivals all react to withdrawal in ways that mirror political and military dynamics. Suppressed longing becomes visible, envy transforms into petty sabotage, and resentment fuels hidden aggression. These patterns are consistent because they are rooted in human nature, not circumstance. The past is littered with examples of individuals undone not by action, but by strategic removal, a father, a mentor, or a leader disappearing, and those left scrambling to fill the void, exposing their dependence, weakness, or ambition. History also teaches the cost of misunderstanding absence. Those who fail to withdraw strategically, or who vanish without calculation, provoke chaos they cannot control. Soldiers desert, allies betray, and enemies exploit. But the master of absence, whether king, general, or strategist, knows that timing and perception are everything. Silence becomes a weapon. Invisibility becomes leverage. Absence reveals the suppressed storm within others and transforms uncertainty into predictable advantage. By the end of this chapter, the viewer internalizes that human suppression, envy, and dependence are constants, and absence is the tool that exposes them. The past is a silent witness to this principle. Control is never in presence alone, but in the strategic manipulation of absence. Understanding this allows the viewer to act with ruthless foresight, exploiting suppressed emotions while remaining untouchable, just as history's most cunning players have done. The battlefield of human interaction is timeless, and absence is its most effective instrument. Absence is not mere retreat, it is a weapon, precise and surgical, designed to reveal, destabilize, and control. Most men vanish out of fear, frustration, or avoidance. The strategist disappears with intention, calculating every effect their absence will have. This chapter teaches the viewer to wield withdrawal with cold precision, transforming silence into leverage and scarcity into dominance. The first rule of tactical withdrawal: never vanish impulsively. Absence without strategy signals weakness, confusion, or panic. The goal is to provoke, not flee. You create space that exposes hidden dependencies, suppressed envy, and concealed ambition, forcing others to act first. Your absence must be deliberate, controlled, and timed to maximize psychological pressure. Every day you withhold presence, every delayed response, and every subtle removal of attention is a signal. Your world moves without you, and theirs cannot. Second, manage perception. Absence alone is inert. Its power comes from the narrative it creates. The moment you disappear, others will fill the void with assumptions, fears, and projections. Allow them to believe you are untouchable, unpredictable, or indifferent. Let them overanalyze, scramble, and overextend. The tactical withdrawal is not about hiding, it is about orchestrating their reaction. You manipulate their suppressed emotions into predictable patterns, transforming them into instruments of your own strategy. Third, observe relentlessly. The greatest advantage of withdrawal is perspective. From distance, you see the architecture of desire, envy, and fear that was invisible when you were present. Patterns emerge. Who panics? Who schemes? Who obsesses? Who adapts? Each reaction is a clue, a map of vulnerability. Record it mentally and exploit it later with precision. Tactical absence turns observation into ammunition and understanding into dominance. Fourth, control the re-entry. Return is as powerful as disappearance. Those who overvalue your presence will misstep when you reappear, driven by envy, desire, or fear. By controlling the timing, manner, and context of your return, you dictate the terms of engagement. This is sovereignty. Your presence no longer serves them, it serves you. The world bends, subtly or overtly, to those who understand absence as a tool, not a concession. Finally, weaponize emotional leverage. Absence exposes weakness. Tactical withdrawal exploits it. The dependent will beg for engagement. The predator will overreach. The schemer will accelerate their plots. Each suppressed emotion is a lever. The master pulls these levers with precision, ensuring that reactions serve their strategy. Emotional suppression becomes visible, predictable, and ultimately controllable. This is power in its purest form, silent, strategic, inevitable. By the end of this chapter, the viewer recognizes that absence is not passive. It is an active strategy, a test, and a weapon. Tactical withdrawal allows you to see what others hide, provoke what they suppress, and control what they cannot. Presence can be taken, absence must be commanded. Mastery comes not from constant engagement, but from knowing when to vanish and how to let the world unravel while you remain untouched. Power is never given, it is seized, and to seize it you must destroy what you were. The man who clings to naivety, loyalty, or habitual presence is a liability, a relic of weakness. This chapter forces the viewer to confront the necessary obliteration of their former self, replacing it with a version forged for sovereignty, ruthlessness, and strategic control. The old identity dies not with ceremony but with quiet, deliberate severance from dependence, emotion-driven reaction, and moral illusion. The first act of this death is disentanglement. Old loyalties, unearned trust, and moral blind spots must be severed. Those who manipulate, deceive, or exploit you will continue to exist in your world, but they will no longer dictate your movement, attention, or decisions. Emotional detachment is not cruelty, it is strategy. The absence you practiced in earlier chapters now becomes a permanent mode, selective, controlled, unavoidable. In this vacuum, your power is no longer subject to validation by others. Next comes reconstruction. The new self is built on clarity, calculation, and anticipation. You no longer operate from reaction but from intention. Every interaction, every engagement is a choice dictated by your objectives, not by their expectations. Weakness is replaced by discernment, dependency by leverage, and moral comfort by tactical coldness. The transformation is total. The man who once needed affirmation now commands it. The man who reacted now orchestrates. The man who gave presence freely now dispenses it like currency. The third phase is immunity to manipulation. As the old identity dies, so does the susceptibility to the emotional games of others. Envy, fear, desire, and resentment no longer dictate your behavior. They become instruments you read, predict, and exploit. The observer becomes the predator. By embracing absence as principle and suppression as map, you achieve an emotional sovereignty that renders interference irrelevant. You are no longer prey but apex. Finally, this death is a declaration of independence. The world will notice the change. Those who counted on your predictability, presence, and compliance will scramble. Some will resist, others will follow. But their reactions are irrelevant. What matters is that you operate untethered, guided solely by strategic intent. Every maneuver, every withdrawal, every calculated interaction is a statement. The old you is gone, and the new you answers to nothing but power, leverage, and vision. By the end of this chapter, the viewer is no longer the man who could be manipulated, pitied, or ignored. The old self, the one who believed loyalty, morality, or constant presence mattered, has been excised. In its place stands the strategist, ruthless, deliberate, and sovereign. Absence, suppression, archetypes, historical precedent, and tactical withdrawal all converge into a single truth. Power is claimed not by presence, but by the relentless, unapologetic mastery of self and space. You have died so that you may rule. This is the final reckoning. Absence is no longer a tool, a test, or a strategy. It is a standard. Those who fail to respect it will stumble, reveal weakness, and implode under the weight of their suppressed emotions. The world measures you not by what you do when present, but by the void you leave behind. This chapter delivers the ultimate warning. Mastery is unforgiving, and indecision is fatal. Those who cannot endure absence, those who panic, scheme, or beg, are already defeated. Their envy, fear, and desire make them predictable, malleable, and disposable. Your withdrawal has exposed them. Every overreach, every whispered plot, every desperate attempt to regain what you control is a confession of inferiority. Recognition of this fact is not compassion, it is strategy. You are no longer their peer, you are the benchmark they cannot surpass. For the elite, absence is sovereignty in motion. It is a lens to read the hidden architecture of human behavior, a weapon to manipulate the weak, and a shield against their games. Every silence you maintain, every calculated disappearance is a strike of authority. You command not by volume, but by scarcity. Those who wish to influence you will reveal themselves fully, their suppression collapsing under your strategic withdrawal. This is power distilled. Observation becomes leverage. Patience becomes control, and invisibility becomes dominion. Your final call is this: embrace the ruthless calculus of presence and absence. Do not comfort, do not appease, do not explain. Your influence is measured by what others cannot endure, the void you create, and the control it yields. Only those who can navigate this unseen battlefield, mastering the emotional suppression and archetypal responses of others, will rise above mediocrity. The rest will crumble, exposed by the silence they cannot command. The verdict is absolute. Absence tests, silence reveals, and withdrawal conquers. If you fail to wield it, you remain prey. If you master it, you become untouchable. This is no lesson in morality, no guide to comfort. It is a blueprint for power, selection, and sovereignty. The silent world around you is a battlefield. Your absence is the signal that war is inevitable, and your mastery is the only guarantee of survival.